Hello and welcome to the Stop Devaluation podcast. I'm your host and founder of the Stop Devaluation movement, Melody Hilton. The heart of this movement is to see the value in all of humanity and live courageous lifestyles of using our power for good instead of harm. We can affect change by choosing validation over judgment, and I hope you'll take your place and make a positive impact in this world. In part one of our interview with Peter Demarest, who is an expert in the science of values generation, we laid a foundation to understand axiogenics. In today's podcast, we will learn about how biases can run the show. We learn the antidote to stopping something is to start something. We'll learn the power of asking the right question. What choice can I make and action can I take at this moment to create the greatest net value? Well, let's get started. Actually, with the Stop Devaluation movement, we are confronting the thoughts, beliefs, and actions that devalue ourselves and others. So, according to axiology, objectively speaking, how does devaluation negatively affect us or an organization?
Sure. So there are two parts to that answer. One has to do with just the, I'll say quality of life, but that in a corporate environment that doesn't just mean the quality of life or the quality of the culture and the experience that employees are having, but right down to productivity, profitability, ability to attract and retain talent. Then of course, also to the quality of the culture. It's often said that the culture of an organization is rooted in the shared values of the members of that organization. Well, it turns out that's only part of it. The other part of it is it's very much rooted in the unshared values or value. It's rooted in not just values, actually, but how people value, how they make judgments of the relative worth of things.
Yes.
And if we know, like the science teaches us, that the human being, the human spirit, human potential is of infinite value.
Yes.
Regardless of the color of their skin,
Yes.
or their gender identity, or their religion, or their politics.
Yep.
They are of infinite value. Even a terrorist, as an intrinsic human being, has infinite value. Doesn't mean terrorism is good, and it doesn't mean that we should not do what we can to keep them committing the acts of terrorism. Right. But as a human being, they're still of infinite value. And there's people listening to this that are going to hear that as some sort of blasphemy, but that's just about the science. And so within an organization, when we intrinsically disvalue a human being, we naturally cause them to give less of their discretionary effort. Their, in the corporate world, they call it engagement, right? Yeah. We lose engagement, we lose productivity, and we begin to see divisiveness show up. One group against another group. Yeah. The in-group and the out-group. The haves and the have-nots. And ultimately, that will create tremendous toxicity within an organization that is unsustainable in the long run. And such a waste. Yes. You know, Melody, one of the things that sort of instigated and informed almost my entire life was I was sitting in the principal's office back in 1972, and the school secretary, as we would have called her in those days, came in with a poster, and she hung it on the wall, almost right in front of me. And that poster was the brand new United Negro College Fund slogan. Do you remember what it is?
No.
A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
I remember that now, yes.
Right? that stuck with me my entire life. And even in the years that I was in the IT industry, my work as a programmer and in working with computers was really about how can we use computers to unlock human potential, not to replace it, but to unlock it. Let the computers do the simple, mundane sorts of things to allow the creativity and genius of the human being to blossom. So back to the corporate world and devaluation, when that is allowed to become a norm, then we're wasting a lot of human minds and a lot of human potential. And not just for profitability, but for creativity, innovation, joy, happiness, fulfillment.
You make me want to cry right now, I'm telling you.
Well, so there's another side to it, and that is, what does it do in the brain?
Yep.
Right? What happens in the human mind when someone is consistently disvalued or treated as if they're less than, or even different in a negative way?
Yes.
Not good enough. Well, to some degree, almost every person listening to this podcast has probably had the experience in their life of being told they're not good enough. They're not worthy. And even whether you're, an old white, angry man, you've probably still had that at some point in your life, even if it was just a boss that's telling you.
Yes.
And to whatever degree you can remember what that feels like, imagine being someone who's being told that about things they have no choice about, like the color of their skin, or their gender, or the religion they were born into and raised into, right?
Correct.
And I think it's one of the biggest problems we have in society today is how we devalue each other for no other reason than we've been conditioned to.
Yes. And
out
really,
of fear.
that's what the StopDevaluation movement is all about, because I am convinced if we stop devaluation and begin to value the intrinsic worth of a human being, then what takes place is the ability for people personally to be healed, as well as even organizations and nations to be impacted for good. So, Peter, on the flip side, what is the impact of valuing ourselves and others, seeing that intrinsic worth of another human being?
Well, so in our work in neuroaxiology, and one of the applications of it is a coaching and training program around what we call valuegenic self-leadership. And what that is because we can measure all the different ways a person thinks, we're able to identify which are the ways of thinking that they have that are somewhat biased and that can become liabilities in their everyday choices and actions and reactions and interactions, and which are their ways of thinking that they already and naturally align to the laws of value dynamics, or what we call the hierarchy of value.
Yes.
And those are what we call cognitive assets. So self-leadership, valuegenic self-leadership, is about engaging their best ways of thinking, the cognitive assets, the valuegenic ways of thinking, rather than allowing the habits of their biases to run the show.
There you go.
And, right? So, but here's the interesting thing is that, let's say somebody realizes very early on in this process that they want to achieve something. It could be anything. It could be developing a skill, accomplishing a goal, or an aspiration of any kind, or merely to improve something such as their productivity or their marriage or whatever that is. And most people already know the things they need to do to make those improvements or to achieve things. They just don't do it. They don't know how to kind of get their mind to get there. So we take them to the next level, which we call be more and be less. What are the ways of being that you can recognize are important for you to be less and be more, such as less judgmental and more compassionate,
Yeah.
or less scattered and distracted and more focused and proactive. These are just a couple of examples. Well, as it turns out, the human mind can't actually just stop anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if I told you to stop procrastinating, don't do anything else, just stop procrastinating, how would you do that?
Are you asking me?
Sure.
Well, that's probably not something I deal with. I'm probably more
Okay.
putting lesser value on that and more value on and getting it done now, and do it today so you
Okay.
don't have to do it tomorrow. So,
Yes.
but the fact is when there is an established automatic way of thinking, it is. It is not an easy thing to just stop thinking the way we've been thinking. We have to begin to rewrite the instructions of our
Yes.
minds.
And the point being, we can't actually be less. We can only be more.
Ah.
So the antidote to stopping something is to start something.
Oh, that is so good.
Okay. So if we find, yes, I have this habit because I was raised in a certain way, that I, have this thing about Jewish people, or I have this thing about Asian people, or black people, or blondes. It doesn't matter what it is. And if at some level we can start to realize, this is actually costing me something. This is costing me in my ability to relate to people, because all of a sudden I have a boss who is one of the quote unquote those people that I've judged all my life as somehow less than, and it's costing me my ability to succeed. And I recognize it. And if I can also recognize, and it's fundamentally wrong, it's just a habit. This bias is just a habit that I've developed over my life through my life experiences and indoctrination into particular norms that surrounded me. So if I can recognize that there's value in being different than we've been in the past, then we have the opportunity to start interrupting those patterns. And the access to interrupting those patterns in a way that creates value is to start asking ourselves the right questions. My book is called Answering the Central Question, right?
Yes.
And what is the central question? Well, it arises out of the work we've done and research we've done in neuroaxiology that reveals that our judgments of value impact, dominate, influence, drive virtually 100% of all of our emotions, decisions, actions, and reactions, and interactions, behaviors.
Yes.
Our judgments of value. We are attracted to, and we will pursue things that we perceive have great value, at least to us. We will sort of ignore or dismiss things that don't really have much value to us. Like the television shows you don't watch.
Right.
You don't watch them because they don't have value to you, right?
Correct.
But we will resist and fight against things that we think are going to take value away.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, no one listening to this call or anyone I've ever come across has ever made a single decision or taken a single conscious action that they didn't believe was right, was anything other than the right thing for them to do in that moment, at least for themselves. Not a single time. This is what drives the human spirit. And the issue is that we think in terms of creating value for ourselves rather than creating greater value, period. But if we start to ask ourselves a simple question, conscientiously and earnestly, what choice can I make and action can I take in this moment to create the greatest net value? Full stop. If we start to ask ourselves that question, it actually triggers a way of thinking in our minds that's more in alignment with the laws of value creation. Mm-hmm. It has us start to be more conscientious about the choices that we're making. And it's not just for us. It's for all people concerned, both, and considering the pros and the cons in both short and long term. And just asking that question, and as we've taught people around the world to do so, it's made a tremendous impact on their lives.
And it's so
and
true.
in many cases, in their organizations. Yeah.
I've learned this from you, that a part of the hierarchy of value is when I'm able to value myself, then the byproduct will be the ability to value another person. If I can see my intrinsic worth, then I am motivated to see another's intrinsic worth. What a depth of knowledge we have just learned. You know, the science of value generation is not just about social relationships, but the corporate worth of things. Many devaluing beliefs are just habits we've developed over our lives that has hindered our success. When we see that there is value in being different than what we were in the past, we have the ability to interrupt our negative patterns of thinking. Truly, asking the right question is a game changer. Don't miss part 3 as we discuss, is it possible to see a person's intrinsic worth when their actions are bad, evil, or unjust? I want to thank you for listening and encourage you to become a part of the Stop Devaluation movement. Be sure to like and follow #StopDevaluation on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and visit StopDevaluation.com for more information and free resources. You can help spread the movement by sharing with others, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, and most of all, by living a courageous lifestyle of using your power for good. Go out and value someone today. Your life matters, and you can make the world a better place. One word, one choice, one action of validation at a time.